back to another edition of Center Stage Sweets. Today we will be discussing the beloved Rodgers and Hammerstein musical Cinderella and making pumpkin muffins to honor it. So Cinderella was originally started as a TV musical starring Dame Julie Andrews, and eventually there was another one produced with Leslie Ann Warren in the title role, and of course the Brandy one, which we all loved and grew up with, those of us millennials in the crowd. So since it's such a classic and beloved story, I thought let's go for it. And since it's fall, it's pumpkin season, so bring on the pumpkin spice. So to start with today, I have half a cup of granulated sugar and a full cup of brown sugar. You can use light or dark, doesn't matter in this recipe. And to that, we are going to whisk in a half a cup of vegetable oil. And we're just gonna get it so that it's combined, just kind of mixing our fat and our sugar together. It's gonna create kind of a wet, sandy texture. And this one is nice, you don't need a mixer for it. You can, of course, use your mixer if you have one, but I find that a whisk works just fine in this instance. All right, once it's nice and kind of wet, sandy, we're gonna go ahead and add in our eggs. We've got 2 eggs, we're gonna add them in just one at a time. And while I'm mixing these eggs, funny story about the one time I was in Cinderella. I was in a community theater production of it, a youth production. I was in the ensemble, and I found out years later when I was having dinner with my fiance's family that my future sister-in-law was actually in the show with me as well. So we pulled out a cast picture, and sure enough, there was my future sister-in-law Jennifer, and there I was. Little did we know. So to this now that our eggs, oil, and sugar are combined, we're gonna add in 1 can of pumpkin puree, a 15-ounce can. If you make your own at home, good for you. I don't have that kind of time on my hands, so I use the canned stuff. It's perfectly fine. Nothing against store-bought here when it comes to that kind of stuff. Just wanna make sure you get all of it out of the can. This is one of my favorite fall breakfast foods. They're super easy to make, so flavorful, and just absolutely delicious. I just made them recently with my niece, so they're totally kid-friendly too. Great one to get the kids involved in the kitchen. So we're just gonna get this nice and mixed up. And once it's all mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and add in our dry ingredients. I have here our dry ingredients, which I have already sifted together. In here we have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour. Now, if you don't have whole wheat flour, you can just make that 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour an additional 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. It'll work just fine. I wouldn't do any more whole wheat flour, like I wouldn't change that ratio too much more. Otherwise, the whole wheat flour kind of overpowers the other flavors. So I found that 1/2 cup of whole wheat flour to 1.5 cups of regular flour is the right ratio in this recipe. We also have a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and then we have a heaped teaspoon and 1/2 of cinnamon, a heaped 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg, a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. So we're just gonna get this mixed in. We'll do about 1/2 at a time. And again, just get it whisked in. This is a great time too to have kind of a flexible whisk, so it can kind of help scrape the sides at the same time that it's mixing in. That in there. And once we've got that mixed, we'll put the other 1/2 in. You just want to be careful that you don't send the flour flying, which is something I do frequently, like just now. Now that our dry ingredients are all incorporated, this last ingredient that I'm adding is 100% optional. It's wheat germ. We're gonna add in about 2 tablespoons of it. It adds a little bit more of a nuttiness to the flavor. It doesn't really change too much, but it's actually great for regularity. So I like to add that in to a lot of my breads and muffins. So we're just gonna mix in 2 tablespoons, but like I said, totally optional. You don't have to do it. It's really not gonna make that much of a difference as far as flavor. And now that that is all mixed together, we're ready to fill up our muffin tins. We have our muffin tin prepared. I put cute little green wrappers in it just because, you know, pumpkins with their orange color and their green leaves, but you can do whatever you want. And I've got my scoop here. We're gonna fill each muffin tin with about 2 scoops of batter so they get nice and plump and they rise nicely. I've also sprayed each one of the liners with a little bit of baking spray so that they'll help release the muffins a little bit easier from the papers. So we're just gonna go ahead and get these filled up. We've got the muffin tins filled up with the batter, and now just for a little bit of topping, we're just gonna put a little sugar in the raw on top of it. It's gonna create, you know how sometimes you see bakery muffins that have that kind of like crystallized look on the outside, or our glass slipper kind of look. We're gonna add that to the top of it right now. So it's just however much you want. I'm gonna use a tablespoon measure just to help me, but I'm really just gonna shake it and sprinkle it on top. I just kind of wanna make sure that you cover the whole top of each muffin with it and like really be generous with it. Now that our muffins are all ready to go, we're gonna put them into a preheated 350-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. Our muffins have come out of the oven. We're gonna let them cool for maybe 2-3 minutes while they're still in the pan, then transfer them to a wire rack to let them cool completely before eating. Our muffins are plated and ready to be eaten. If you enjoyed this recipe today, I hope you will subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Center Stage Sweets. And to help us keep going and keep the oven on, please consider supporting us on Patreon. And for more tips, recipes, FAQs, visit us at centerstagesweets.com. See you next time.